David Lynch's Twin Peaks: The Return traces the effects and affects of the murder of Laura Palmer across different dimensions 25 years after the initial event. This retracing requires delving into the obfuscations and impossibilities of these different dimensions, and as such, Laura's assault and death is brought to a looped impasse that simultaneously forecloses the possibility for healing, but also keeps Laura alive in its circularity. In Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You, Bella's sexual assaults within her everyday life are given capacious breathing room in the narrative. As such, Bella is able to come up against the relational, affective, and temporal breaks that her assaults produce in her life, and after some time, Bella is able to refigure the traumatic event on her own terms. The Return and I May Destroy You both understand trauma as something that always exceeds the event, and subsequently, both shows attempt to return to the initial rupture in order to try and find a way out of the impasse imposed by trauma. This essay is split into 3 parts. First, I'll explain how The Return attempts to do the impossible, to bring Laura back home, and how this project can only lead to remaining stuck within this impossibility. Second, I'll explain how Bella, in I May Destroy You, is able to get unstuck from the impasse of her traumas by refiguring the initial event on her own terms. Lastly, I will comparatively analyze how both shows close their traumas, and try to argue that if The Return demonstrates the impossibility of returning to the initial rupture that continues to be affectively endured across different durations, then I May Destroy You provides an opening within trauma's vicious cycle by refiguring the I of the initial event into a separate you that holds open the possibility of healing the unfinished you through its destruction. In part 17, after Freddy kills evil Cooper, Cooper sets off to try and find Laura and bring her back home. Once Cooper gets to Jeffries, he travels back to the night Laura died. And here, Cooper inserts himself into a scene from Fire Walk With Me, convincing Laura to take his hand and go home. This repetition of the night Laura died is an attempt to create difference, as Guerra notes, in order to create new meaning, in order to relate the terms of the night Laura died in a different way. But once Cooper looks back the last time, the sound of a record skipping plays, and Laura disappears. The scratching noise, where noises in The Return have a transmigratory function in between dimensions, as Marshall and Lloydell note, corresponds to Leland's dancing and possession by recorded music. Importantly, as Thane notes, Leland's dancing with Laura's picture in Season 1, Episode 2, is an attempt to spark something different, a dance that is at once of difference and repetition. This skipping record appears again in Season 2, Episode 14, when Leland is killing Maddie. The scratching noise, a generation of heterochronicity, signals that repeating the night Laura died cannot create difference, because present-day Coopers trying to rewrite Laura's death is at odds with the loop of Leland's sexual assault and murder of Laura to Maddie. The past has already been repeated, and no difference can be had from the record that has been played too much. In Part 18, after Laura's disappearance, Cooper finds himself back in the waiting room of the Black Lodge, and Mike asks him if it is future or past. This scene plays out in the reverse of when it first appeared in Part 2. This repetition and reversal demonstrates that time in the Black Lodge moves forward and backward simultaneously, as parallel to how the inhabitants of the Black Lodge speak and walk and dance. This figures the past and the future as repetitions and reversals of another, like a skipping record or a loop. But at the end of this iteration in Part 18, Cooper exits the Black Lodge and finds Diane waiting for him. Cooper and Diane travel to another dimension, where Cooper then tries to convince Laura to return home. Cooper finds himself in Odessa and meets Laura, who is apparently not Laura but Carrie Page. This doubling of Laura is the third instance, first with Maddie, second with the aging Laura in the Black Lodge, and now Carrie Page. Even the White Horse, which appears in Fire Walk With Me in the first seasons of Twin Peaks and in the Black Lodge scene in Part 2, is found on Carrie's mantle in the form of a miniature toy. These doublings create an intense feeling of uncanniness, that somehow Laura is dead yet lives on, not exactly as herself, but as familiar remnants that have become inescapably unfamiliar at the same time. Further, these doublings also strangely portend that what happened to Laura might also happen to every version of her. When Cooper and Carrie arrive at the Palmer's house in some version of Twin Peaks, it is no longer the Palmer's home. The familiar has become totally unfamiliar. Yet, when Carrie and Cooper look up at the window of Laura's room, as the sixth repetition of Laura's scream and the last audible noise in the return, closing with this repetition gestures to the impossibility of escaping the loop of the initial traumatic event. For Laura, Maddie, and Carrie, there is no way out between the past and future because past and future are just repetitions and reversals of one another. Because of this, Laura oddly continues to live in abeyance in the Black Lodge. That is, Laura lives on insofar as she dies.
Wisdom, tightrope, vision, insight, stronghold, hardness, ice cold, mystery, mastery, solar.
Some will pull the gun because they want to be sauce, snatching up your life into the blink of an eye. And if you see your clone on the street walking by, keep it running for your life cause only one will survive. Wars in the streets and it's an eye for an eye. Run on for your life or you can dash, you can die. She's spraying in the sand like she's the last samurai. It's a stick up, and a pick up, telling lies and put your face on.
In episode 11, Bella meets with Zane in order to help her with her book. After meeting with Zane, Bella begins working on arranging the structure of her narrative. Already, Bella establishes herself as in control of what will be written and how her narrative will be arranged. After this, Bella then goes out to her backyard and chats with her roommate. This is the first iteration of this scene, and what I want to call the first interval before Bella's different resolutions. This first interval precedes Bella's seeing David at the Ego Death Bar. This interval begins the reopening and regeneration of the wound of the initial event as we get a flashback of Bella's experience that night of her assault. Following this flashback is the first of 3 repetitions of Bella's encountering David at the bar. This first repetition allows Bella to enact revenge on David. After killing David, Bella takes his dead body and shoves it under her bed. While this repetition allows Bella to have a vengeance that only ever seems like a fantasy, Bella's shoving David under her bed suggests that this revenge still requires a literal shoving down of the trauma as something uncomfortable that Bella can pretend to forget, as Kohler notes about Bella's cleaning out her bed in earlier episodes. This repetition lapses and we go back into the interval before the bar. In the second repetition, Terry has devised a plan involving the police. When the police arrive, Bella has taken David into her bedroom and she takes time to understand him before the police takes him away. This repetition both provides justice to Bella and also enacts what Kohler calls a radical empathy that tests the limits of forgiveness. We then go back to the interval. In the third and last repetition, Bella reopens the wounds of her past and of her assault on her own terms. In the bathroom, Bella is able to look at the moments in her life at a distance, determining her present self as different than her past. With David, who is this time not called David, but Patrick, Bella is able to refigure how the event of her assault signifies herself by repeating the encounter with David/Patrick as she decides. As Benson Allett writes, I May Destroy You does not tie narrative closure with catching the perpetrator, but rather to restoring the survivor's self-esteem. Bella tells David and Patrick to leave. Bella allows herself to take out what is left under her bed. She no longer allows her assault to define her. After destroying the remnants left under her bed, Bella tears down 2 cards, leaving up one, which reads Garden Ben. Following Benson Allett's argument, I want to further suggest that it is Bella's choosing the interval in between the repetitions when she is outside with Ben that finalizes the separation of the I of the initial event into a you that can be destroyed. Because choosing the interval in between repetition means Bella can make new, different meaning in her relationships, the interval as a moment of everydayness with Ben, and choosing the interval in between the repetition of the initial event means that Bella can make her own time for reprieve, a time to take a breath. Both The Return and I May Destroy You provide direct confrontation with the initial traumatic event through the repetition of the originary encounter in order to try and create difference, to try and create new meaning. In The Return, this repetition and confrontation, as Dumas notes, only induces the dissolution of the identity of Laura, shoving things into further obscurity, leaving Laura stuck within the loop of trauma's repetition and reversal. As Dumas argues, The Return provides no resolution to the initial trauma of Twin Peaks, and instead gestures to the idea that trauma might find articulation through us if we become vulnerable to its affects. In these last few moments that we see of Laura, it intensely materializes the affect that has compounded within the Palmers' home, the affect that has accumulated over the 25 years of Twin Peaks. In I May Destroy You, the repetition and confrontation allows Bella to refigure the I of the initial trauma into a separate you through her writing, holding open the possibility of destroying this unfinished you completely on her own terms. Just as the title card of I May Destroy You plays out, Bella is in charge of writing or deleting the you of her assault, the you of Bella's diegetic witnesses, and lastly, the typing and deletion of this you over the 12 episodes of the show demonstrates Michaela Cole's control over what and how the you of the viewer gets to see Bella's story, which is, of course, also in part Cole's own story.